Nazis. I hate these guys. Let's talk about Nazi symbolism in surfing. This is going to cheer you up. Not. Welcome to the Wipeout Weekly, the daily podcast for beginners, wannabe surfers, and seasoned wipeout enthusiasts. No hype, no filler, just the highs, lows, and honest truth about learning to surf and finding your place in surf culture. I'm your host, Suze Wilson. Let's go out. I'm allergic to Nazi symbolism in surfing, and in general. It may have something to do with the Second World War, being Polish, a grandfather who survived a labor camp, a grandmother who gave birth in Nazi-occupied Warsaw, just the usual Eastern European hang-ups. Can't be helped. I'm also severely averse to racism, xenophobia, homophobia, misogyny, just to name a few of the what the fuck is wrong with this world isms and phobias. I believe experience can cure stupidity, but some people are plainly incurable. I am also truly, madly, deeply in love with surfing. Just a bit of background so you know where I'm coming from. The first time I watched a scene in Riding Giants where young surfers get out of a car dressed in Nazi uniforms, holding rifles, it didn't even register. Greg Knoll narrated. Some guy's dad had gotten back from the war and he had a closet full of Nazi stuff that he brought back. And then they went over and took flexies and rode down a storm drain for a mile underneath the town of Windassee. And that was just, having a good time. But people see it and they go, oh, what's this all about? Perhaps before I assumed it must have been harmless and because what Steve Pesman said next. That kind of behavior was not mean-spirited. It was playful. It was like turning a hearse into a surfmobile. Instead of dead bodies, it was all about living life to the fullest. There was a time, before being adopted by the German National Labour Party and Hitler's rise to power, when the swastika represented a symbol of divinity and spirituality across Eurasia. So you can, with enough historical distance, contextualize the fact that in the early 1930s, Pacific System Homes in Los Angeles sold the swastika surfboard model, the first commercially available surfboard. It was soon renamed Waikiki. The Riding Giant scene is from the 1950s when Greg Knoll and the crew, in addition to dressing up as Nazis, marched along the beachfront holding Nazi flags for Greg's upcoming surf movie, Search for Surf. Because, he wanted to be outrageous. As Greg later put it, you paint a swastika on your car and it would piss people off. So what do? You paint on two swastikas. I like to think of Greg Knoll from that period as young, pig-headed, and plain stupid. Like really stupid, ignorant with no reference point. Unlike the infamous Miki Dora, born in Hungary of all places, and his Malibu surf crew, who, upon learning that the inspiration behind Gidget, Kathy Conner and her family, were Jewish, spray-painted a swastika on their driveway. Miki Dora was a very special type of egotistical surfing asshole, and a notable racist. Yet all was forgiven because he surfed very well. So well, in fact, that he was inducted into the International Surfing Hall of Fame in 1966. If you're thinking, oh, well, that's okay, I recommend reading Daniel Duane's New York Times article on California's surf Nazis, which includes a few quotes about Dora that are genuinely nauseating. Moving on. In the mid-60s, swastikas were out and iron crosses were in. With the arrival of Surfers Cross decals and pendants introduced by Ed Big Daddy Roth, modeled after the German Iron Cross Military Award, the surf press wasn't impressed. Nazi symbolism resurfaced a few more times with the arrival of surf Nazis, see grammar Nazis, then the 1987 Surf Nazis Must Die movie, and later in the early 90s when Australian pro surfer Matt Hoy airbrushed an iron cross onto the decks of his boards. What a douche. You might be thinking, why is she on about something that happened decades ago? I don't know. Maybe because over the past year or two, Nazi symbolism has become pretty present in our society. And surfing doesn't get a special exemption from history just because it's fun or counterculture. Nazi symbolism isn't aesthetic or a prank. It can read as intimidation and, in some cases, ideology. You don't have to be European these days to get it. There is a reason why Nazi symbols and gestures are banned by law in many countries. Stupidity and youth can no longer be an excuse. To be clear, I don't believe Nazi symbolism will ever return to surfing. I'm actually very optimistic about the evolution of surf culture. However slow. We're smart now. And that's all for today. Check out the Wi-Fi Weekly for our free newsletter, more stories and ways to connect with us. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow for more of the Wi-Fi Weekly.